Es Chazor Zech Nishbach Chetz Shagam Yehudim Says Chullin Daf Gimel. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Leisoichel nefesh ma'basar is the issur of Eiv Menachai, and ubasar asar treifa leichelu is the issur to eat flesh from a live animal and flesh of a treifa." Rish Lakish said, "Leisoichel nefesh ma'basar is the issur of Eiv Menachai and of eating flesh from a live animal. Ubasar asar treifa leichelu is the issur of eating flesh of a treifa." So if someone ate Eiv Menachai and flesh of a live animal, according to Rabbi Yochanan, be chayav two sets of malchus. According to Rish Lakish, be chayav only one set of malchus. If someone ate the flesh of a live animal and flesh of a treifa, according to Rish Lakish, be chayav two sets of malchus. According to Rabbi Yochanan, be chayav only one set of malchus. If one ate Eiv Menachai and meat of a treifa, according to all, he'd be chayav two sets of malchus. We learned that if one eats Eiv Menachai of a treifa, Rabbi Yochanan says he's chayav two sets of malchus. Rish Lakish says he's only chayav one. Now Rabbi Yochanan is consistent with what we just said from him before, but Rish Lakish is not. And for tomorrow, Rabbi Yochanan said when they agreed that he's chayav two sets of malchus, they were referring to where he ate Eiv Menachai from one animal and meat of a treifa from another animal. However, when eating the Eiv Menachai and the meat of a treifa from the same animal, they argue what's the basis of machlokes when it's one animal. So Abaye said the case where the animal became a treifa as most of it came out of the womb. Rabbi Yochanan holds that an animal is considered to be a bunch of separate limbs, which means the limbs are already usher at the time of its birth, and therefore the issur of Eiv Menachai and of treifa both came about at the same time, and therefore both take effect. Rish Lakish holds that the animal is not viewed as a bunch of limbs, and therefore they don't become usher until they're removed from the animal, and therefore the issur of Eiv Menachai comes about after the issur of treifa and can't take effect on top of it. Second teretz, we can even say that everyone agrees that the animal is not viewed as a bunch of limbs. Machlekes is whether the issur of Eiv Menachai can take effect on top of the issur of treifa. Rabbi Yochanan says that it does, since it's more stringent in that it applies to bnei noach. Rish Lakish says it's not. It does not. Third teretz, we can even say that everyone agrees that the animal is viewed as a bunch of limbs. The case is that the animal became a treifa later on. Machlekes is whether the issur of treifa can take effect on top of the issur of Eiv Menachai. Rabbi Yochanan says that it does, because he holds that an issur always takes effect on top of another issur. Rish Lakish said it does not. Fourth teretz, Rabbi said the case of machlekes is where someone ripped off an aver and in doing so made it a treifa. Rabbi Yochanan holds that the animal is not viewed as a bunch of limbs, and therefore the issur of Eiv Menachai and of treifa come at the same time, and therefore both take effect. Rish Lakish holds that an animal is viewed as a bunch of limbs, which makes the issur of Eiv Menachai take effect at birth, and the issur of treifa does not take effect on it at all. Dr. Rabbi Yochanan said if someone ate chaylev of a live animal that was a treifa, he'd be chayav two sets of malchus. Rabbi Ami said to Rabbi Abba, you say he's chayav three sets of malchus, because I said Rabbi Yochanan said he's chayav three sets. Gemara says we learned that Rabbi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan said if someone ate chaylev of a live animal that was a treifa, he'd be chayav three sets of malchus. What's machlok between the two versions of Rabbi Yochanan? Dr. Gemara, it's in a case where the animal became a treifa at birth. The version that says he's chayav three sets of malchus holds that an animal is viewed as a bunch of limbs, and therefore the yisurim of chaylev, Eiv Menachai, and of treifa all take effect at the same time. The version that says he's chayav two sets holds that the animal is not viewed as a bunch of limbs, and therefore the yisurim of chaylev and of treifa take effect, but Eiv Menachai does not. Second teretz, we can even say that everyone agrees that the animal is not viewed as a bunch of limbs. Machlekes is whether the issur of Eiv Menachai can take effect upon the issur of treifa and chaylev. Third teretz, we can even say that everyone agrees that the animal is viewed as a bunch of limbs. The case is that the animal became a treifa later on. Machlekes is whether the issur of treifa can take effect on top of the issur of Eiv Menachai. The version that says he's chayav three sets holds that just as the issur of treifa takes effect on top of the issur of chaylev, it also takes effect on top of the issur of Eiv Menachai. The other version holds that it takes effect on top of chaylev, since there are times when chaylev is mutter, like the chaylev of a chaya, but does not take effect on top of the issur of Eiv Menachai, since there is no exception to it. The Gemara continues. Rav Dimi said that Rish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan, what's the halacha if someone divided a kazayis of Eiv Menachai outside his mouth and then he ate each half separately? Rabbi Yochanan said he'd be potter. Rish Lakish asked, what if he divides it inside his mouth and then eats it? Rabbi Yochanan said he'd be chayiv. Ravin said, in the case where he divided it outside his mouth, he'd be potter. In the case that he divided it inside his mouth, Rabbi Yochanan said he'd be chayiv since the full kazayis is in his mouth at one time. Rish Lakish said he's potter because he must swallow a full kazayis at one time to be chayiv. If Kahana explained, according to Rish Lakish, one would only be chayiv where he swallowed it whole, like a certain small bone that swallowed whole. Rabbi Lazar said that even where he divided it outside his mouth and ate each half separately, he'd be chayiv because he has eaten the kazayis, and the fact that it was not done as one whole kazayis would not take away from that. Rish Lakish said, when we say that one is chayiv for eating a kazayis, it excludes any amount that's stuck between his teeth. Rabbi Yochanan said it includes the amount stuck between his teeth. Rabbi Papa said they did not argue regarding the food stuck between the teeth. Rather, they agree that the food stuck between the teeth is not included in the kazayis. Machlekes is regarding food that's stuck to the palate. Rabbi Yochanan holds that he enjoyed the taste of it and therefore it's included in the kazayis. Rish Lakish holds that it has to be eaten, which means it must make its way to his stomach. Rav Asian and Rabbi Yochanan said if someone ate a half of a kazayis of iser and then vomited it up and then ate another half of kazayis, he'd be chayiv because he has enjoyed the taste of a full kazayis. Rabbi Lazar asked Rav Asi, what if after vomiting the half kazayis he ate that same half kazayis again? What's the question? If he's asking whether it's considered to be digested, then he should ask regarding a full kazayis and whether the person who ate it would be chayiv two sets of malchus. If he's asking whether it must make it to the stomach and stay there in order to be chayiv, he can answer that based on the statement of Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan. If Rabbi Lazar knew the answer to his question, he asked it to help Rav Asi remember his learning, because Ravasi had forgotten his learning. He asked him, why do you give a case of a second half kazayas? Why not give the case of the same half kazayas, which would then teach that it's not considered to be digested, and would also teach that tasting a full kazayas without it being kept in the stomach makes one chayiv? Ravasi remained silent. Rav Elazar said to him, God Lador, you yourself said this to Rabbi Yechanan, and Rabbi Yechanan agreed with you that the person would be chayiv. Hadnalach Perek Yid Hanosha.